How's it going, everybody? It is Clint coming back to you. It is time for the post-weigh-in recap for UFC Vegas 10. We have got a good one here today. As always, we see everything absolutely fall off the rails the day right before the fight. So we have got last-minute fight changes, dropouts, all kinds of crazy stuff happening here at this weigh-ins. So let's dig straight on into it. First things first, a couple of fight cancellations. We lost Matt Frevola. So Matt Frevola is out. He broke his foot in sparring. Apparently, they weren't able to patch it up enough for him to continue fighting. So he's been pulled off the card. Thankfully, they have a replacement. He will be on the weigh-ins here today. And then we lost a fight entirely. Matt Schnell versus Tyson Nam is off. Unfortunately, Matt Schnell was having trouble cutting weight, and he passed out during the process. They don't appear to have a late weigh-in replacement for him. Tyson Nam didn't weigh in, so that fight is completely removed from the card. Unfortunately, I was really looking forward to that one. So kicking off the weigh-ins here, we've got Sabina Mazo taking on Justine Kish to start our night off. Both women came in at 125.5, and honestly, not a whole lot to report. This one looks exactly like we expected. Neither of them looked like they struggled. Neither of them looked out of the ordinary amazing. It was a pretty good face-off. Kish looked really geared up and ready to go. I'm kind of excited to see if Robin Black was right on this one, and maybe we're underestimating Kish. But the story of the face-off was the size advantage for Mazo. I think that's going to play a huge, huge role in this fight, and I think Kish is going to have a hard time closing that distance. We've got Brian Barberena taking on Anthony Ivy, the first leg of our two-man parlay. Brian Barberena comes in at 170. Business as usual, no problem for him. He's one of these guys that never really looks incredible on the scales to begin with. He was a bit flabby, had some extra, body weight there on him, but again, that's kind of normal for Brian Barberena. Anthony Ivy came in at 169.5, and he looked in great shape. Business as usual, and Ivy was not much bigger than Barberena. I thought he was going to be a decent chunk larger than Barb, but Barb actually looked pretty dialed in, focused, ready to go. He's even got the mohawk rocking. I'm excited for this one. I'm still sticking with that parlay there. Brock Weaver taking on Jalen Turner. This is one where Frank Camacho dropped out. We saw a little while ago that Jalen Turner decided to go ahead and fill in here, so it's nice to see him on the card since his fight fell apart a couple of weeks ago. Brock Weaver came in at 164. They are having a 165-pound catch weight because both these guys are so big and because Jalen Turner is coming in on such short notice. Brock Weaver had the Native American tribal war paint on. He always looks like a badass at the weigh-ins. Dialed in, looked in great shape, really ready to go in my opinion. Jalen Turner came in at 163.5, and as always, he is shredded. The dude is one of these really, really tall lightweights, so he doesn't have a whole lot of fat on him, just great shape, looking good. And he brought a tarantula. I know his fight name is the Tarantula, but I hate spiders, and this guy comes out and full-on thing crawling around on his hand. No thank you, I'll pass. Catch weight here, great face-off. They started to get into it, though. It was pretty interesting to see that they seemed heated up. I mean, Brock Weaver's always ready to fight, and so is Jalen Turner, but with the short notice replacement here, I'm not sure what the beef is, but these guys kind of went after each other, and Brock actually refused to get off the stage. Like, they had to have someone, shoo him off so the next face-off could get going. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And honestly, the thing that surprised me most in that face-off is how big Brock Weaver is. Jalen Turner is a massive 155er, and Brock wasn't that much smaller than him, and he was a decent bit thicker. So this is one that I kind of expected to be a smash spot for Jalen Turner. The line opened up at -300. He's already been bet down to about -325. You can get +250 over on Brock Weaver. And I know I was on Brock Weaver before. Like I said, I was very tempted against Frank Camacho. Camacho's a guy that we've seen break. Camacho's a guy that we've seen wilt. This is another situation where I'm really confused. I'm not sure what I want to do here because Jalen Turner, he's a finisher. He's a kill or be killed fighter. He's never seen the judges' scorecards. And because of that, you think he's going to come out and kind of maul Brock Weaver, but he's more of a striker. He's not a guy that really utilizes his ground game a whole ton. We saw Brock get out-finessed by a guy like Roosevelt Roberts. He got choked out in that spot. But against a guy that's going to stand and bang, against a guy that's got some low volume, he's got some really tall legs that are easy to get under those hips. Brock Weaver might be live in this spot, folks. He might be able to push Jalen Turner back up against the cage. He might be able to get on those hips. He might be able to drag him to the mat. And Jalen Turner's always had a problem with low volume. The other thing is Brock Weaver's notorious for being hard to finish. I mean, he got knocked out by an illegal knee. Yeah, he got submitted, but that's not the same thing as getting your lights shut off by a punch. So I don't know. I'm going to have to dig deep on this one, but I wouldn't touch Turner at that minus 300 price tag. I'll tell you that much. Alexander Romanov taking on Martinez. Romanov finally, maybe making his UFC debut. After 3 unsuccessful attempts, they threw him on this card very last second to get him in here against Martinez. Came in at 261, big old husky boy. He's flabby, he's a heavyweight, always in a good mood, smiling. I like this guy. I hope this fight stays together just so we can get Romanov his damn UFC debut. Martinez came in at 258.5, and he went full sumo. This is a big old flabby heavyweight. This is a guy that carries a whole lot of fat on him, and he's much smaller than Romanov is. I haven't had a bunch of time to look into Martinez, but this really pisses me off because I had a great line on Martinez at minus 1.5 last week. I beat the huge line move and the steam that went towards him. I was looking forward to cashing that bet, and now he is sitting here against a relative unknown at minus 310. We just have another absolutely massive favorite added onto the card. I want to see this guy make his debut. I want to watch him work, but this is not the spot. We can't really bet on him here at this price tag, and I don't know a whole lot about Martinez, so I don't want to be overly disrespectful of this man, but you're going up against a guy who ragdolls people for a living at heavyweight, and he's facing someone who is much smaller than he is. I think this is going to be Romanov by smashing. Roosevelt Roberts taking on Kevin Croom. Kevin Croom is the short notice replacement for our guy Matt Frivola. Lost a bet there, unfortunately. Roosevelt Roberts came in at 155.5, and he looked bored, business as usual. Made weight, was kind of smiling a little bit, but just kind of wanted to get going. Kevin Croom came in at 154.5, and honestly, he looked a little bit soft. He's a 145er, normally speaking. He's fighting up here at 155 for this fight. Last-minute replacement, you see that a lot. Obviously, he's got the extra 10 pounds. Not a whole lot to cut there. And he looked a decent bit smaller when they faced off. The thing about Roosevelt Roberts, he looked bored on the scales, but boy, did he crank it up when they got to the face-offs. He got in Croom's face. He was ready to go. Dana White kind of had to hold him back, and Kevin Croom actually brought a comb with him. He kind of whipped it around like it was a switchblade knife, and while Roosevelt was trying to get in his face, he's sitting there doing this thing, just brushing his hair, kind of smiling at him. So nice, quiet confidence here from Kevin Croom. I really want to look into him a little bit more. I know he's very experienced, but I also know he's been finished several times. My early lean would be to Roosevelt Roberts, just because we've seen what he can do. We know he's UFC level. He's improving every single time out. And even though I was going to bet against him in this spot, he's a big 155er going against a short notice 145er. I got to kind of lean that direction. But he is one of these overpriced favorite fighters. Reminds me kind of Luis Pena. We could see another extremely wide line here when this one eventually drops. Julia Avila, the Raging Panda, comes in at 135, taking on vsjara. Eubanks at 135 as well. Avila looked, cheerful, happy, very relaxed, very easygoing. Doesn't seem like she struggled with the weight cut at all. vsjara Eubanks actually looked to be in really good shape. That's not something I often say about vsjara Eubanks, and she didn't look like she struggled at all on the scales. She was moving around just fine, didn't seem to have any problems whatsoever. And it was a really respectful way off. Avila tried to do the paper, rock, scissors with Eubanks, but she kind of wasn't having it. And the thing that stood out to me again was Avila's size. She's a decent chunk bigger than vsjara Eubanks. I don't know that this line is appropriate. I feel like it's definitely a little bit wide. This is a step up for Julia Avila, but I still think she manages to get the win here. Billy Quarantillo taking on Kyle Nelson. We've got both men coming in at 145.5. Quarantillo looked extremely relaxed. No problems. Looked like he was enjoying himself up there on the scale. Kyle Nelson was the first man in there for weigh-ins. Looked great on the scale. He's always well-muscled. They call him the monster for a reason, and he looked good. And when they faced off, both men were ready to go. This is going to be an absolute scrap. This is going to be a great fight. Billy Quarantillo closes out my two-leg parlay with Brian Barberena, and the only thing that I'm really sweating is round one. Kyle Nelson is this guy that once he gets out of round one, he's just not the same fighter. Billy Quarantillo is the guy that ramps things up as the fight continues going on. I think he's just going to chip away at Kyle Nelson as long as he can stay safe in round one. That's the danger of this spot here, is if Kyle Nelson comes out and lands a bomb at the very beginning of this fight, it could be a quick end for us. Bobby King Green taking on Alan Patrick. Both men come in at 156. Bobby Green is in excellent shape, and I've talked about this before. He's kind of an untrustworthy fighter, but he really seems to be peaking right now. He started talking right away. Classic Bobby Green, ribbing people, getting in people's faces. Alan Patrick was in great shape, and we haven't seen him for 2 years, but he looked extremely confident up there on the scales. When they faced off, both men were really ready to go. They got in each other's faces. Bobby was already starting to talk. Patrick didn't blink, though, and he was a decent chunk bigger than Bobby Green. This is one that I felt like was a little bit wide. I leaned towards Bobby Green here in this fight, but I decided not to include him in a parlay or pull the trigger or anything like that, just because Alan Patrick is such a question mark. He's only been beaten by extremely high-level opponents. Both of those were by finish. He's an injury-riddled fighter, and even though he's a little bit older, he's the bigger man, and he looks to be in great shape. He's been training with some excellent high-level training partners. So if he is capable of doing what he can do, if he can perform to the level that we've seen him in the past, if he's not hampered by something, which, based on what I'm seeing right now, he looked ready to go, Bobby Green could be in for a hell of a fight. And we know Bobby Green fights to the level of his opponents. So in this kind of a case, getting plus 220 on an underdog that's going to bring the fight and be the bigger, stronger man, I don't hate it. I really don't. I don't think I want to parlay Bobby Green at this point. He opened up at minus 185. It's been slow, steady steam, chopping him all the way down to minus 260, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and pass on this one. There's always the chance that Bobby Green just has too much for Patrick and he gets TKO'd late in the fight or something like that, but he could easily snap off a submission. He could be the one guy that manages to get a hold of Bobby Green and keep him down and submit him once he gets him there. It's entirely possible. I think this one might end up being a split decision, and because of that, I would say there's value on Alan Patrick, but I don't know. This one might go against us. I'm not sure I'm going to be putting a bet on this fight. It's a little sketchy. Ed Herman comes in at 205. Short fuse taking on Mike Rodriguez. And Mike Rodriguez came in at 205. Ed needed that extra little half pound to get there on the scales. Ed looked good. He looked really good. I know he's had a couple of fight camps. He's had like 4 or 5 fight camps. All of them have fallen apart, so he's never actually made it to the cage. But he looked fantastic for an older fighter that's dealing with this kind of a situation. Honestly, I think it might have kept him in shape better than it usually does. Mike Rodriguez, he looked like he made weight a little bit easily, but he seemed a little bit soft. I know he's filling in short notice here on this one. He fought just recently, so he was ready to go. But you got to wonder, how much was he really ready to go for this fight? Did he hit the beer hard after that first fight, celebrating his win, and then just started to get back in the gym and thought, what the hell, I'll take a short notice replacement fight, make a little extra cash? Kind of seems like that's what happened to me. Ed Herman was much bigger than I expected. This is a fight that we talked about on my Total Madness show where I think the under really is the way to go here on this fight because both of these guys absolutely bring the heat. Mike Rodriguez is not somebody who I am confident in whatsoever. He is a very untrustworthy fighter. He's chinny. He leaves himself open to be countered. The only problem is Ed Herman is really slow. Now, Ed Herman hits like a freaking truck, and he knows how to clinch. He knows how to strike. He's got these big, strong knees. But honestly, I don't think that Mike Rodriguez has earned this minus 245 line. I think he's way too big of a favorite, and Ed Herman really could show up here and have one last ride. This is the kind of opponent that he should be able to beat. Somebody who we've seen break, someone who we've seen quit, someone who we've seen get knocked out. That's the kind of fighter that an aging veteran like Ed Herman will find a way to win against. Once again, I'm very tempted on the dog because I feel like this is an extremely wide line here. And the under may still very much be in play because as much as I doubt Mike Rodriguez, he has that finishing ability and he has a very long reach advantage. Ed Herman is a very durable guy. He's hard to put away, but when these two get in there and they start slugging around, I feel like someone's going to hit the canvas. I'm still not quite sure what I'm going to do on this fight. It may end up just being fireball and popcorn. We may just end up passing. But give me a follow over at DieHardMMAPod on Twitter. You'll find out. I will tweet it if I end up locking in any kind of a bet for this fight. Roxanne Modafferi, my girl Roxy, comes in at 125, taking on Andrea KGB Lee. She comes in at 125.5. Classic Roxy Modafferi. She was happy, ready to go. She was cosplaying. As always, she had the cap on from One Piece, which worked out real well because there was the Battle of the Hats when they faced off. KGB Lee had to have her big old cowboy hat on. Andrea KGB looked really good on the scales. Big flex, very fit. She's an athlete. Roxy, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of an athlete. She gets where she is from hard work and determination, which is why I love her so much. Honestly, not a whole lot to take away here. Both women looked like they had good weight cuts. Both women looked like they were excited and ready to go. This is going to be one heck of a fight. Again, I feel like the line is maybe a little bit too wide, but I do side with Andrea Lee. I think Roxy is just getting a little bit old, and because of that, someone like Lee, who's going to be younger, more explosive, faster, stronger, better striking, higher volume, I think she's going to be the one that gets away with the win here. She's minus 320. I really hate that line. It's just way too wide here for my liking. And I don't know. I've got a sneaky feeling. We saw Roxy get rocked in her last fight. I don't know. KGB might come out and stun everybody with a finish here. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure on that one as well. I'm probably going to end up just passing on that one because these giant favorite women lines, they just seem to bite me in the ass every time I make a move on them. Co-main event time, the fight I'm maybe most looking forward to on this card at this point since they got rid of my Nam versus Schnell. Ottman Azatar takes on Kama Worthy. Ottman comes in at 156, absolutely shredded. This dude is shredded down to the fiber, just ready to rock physically speaking. And he's got one of those big old thick backs. We've been talking about that a lot recently. That, you know, speaks towards grappling prowess, physical strength, and you've got that knockout power when you've got those big heavy muscles on your back. Kama Worthy 155.5. Honestly, he's looking like he's filling out at 155. He looks extremely strong and looked really good on the scales. I like this kid. I really do. It kind of hurts me to go against him here on this spot. Now, when they faced off, I expected Worthy to have more of a height and reach advantage, but Azatar, he was not a small man. These two are going to match up extremely well when they get in there. Azatar is not going to be at as much of a disadvantage as I expected him to be, and he was kind of waving the one finger at Kama. I mean, the sheer confidence of Azatar, you know, an undefeated fighter with massive knockout power coming in, just ready to go. You can't beat that. I mean, he's like the... I'm blanking. He's like the Frankie Murder of 155, right? Francis Ngannou down here at 155. Undefeated, knocks everybody the hell out. I think this is going to be an absolute banger. This is going to be a fun fight. Main event time, Michelle Waterson takes on Angela Overkill Hill. Michelle Waterson came in at 115 pounds. Hill came in at 115.5. Michelle Waterson, really, really good shape. Her abs still popping for days. She looks like she has taken this camp extremely seriously, and physically speaking, she is ready to go. This is a former 105er who looks like she's really filled out at 115. She looks like she belongs now. She's packed on some serious muscle. I'm very excited to see this fight. Angela Hill also came in great shape. However, this is where things get a little sticky for me. She seemed extremely serious. Not her usual perky, smiley self. She was extremely shut down on the scales, which is weird. Usually when these fighters get into it, they face off with each other and, you know, they're ready to go. There might be some tension. There might be some bad blood. But that comes when you're staring down your opponent. She was very muted on the scales, and that's not normal. When they got to the face-offs, it was an intense stare down. Both these women look like they are ready to go. Eyes deadlocked on each other, and they held it there for a minute. Now, Waterson is always somebody who comes to compete, but she's also very respectful of her opponents, and she went to go and shake Hill's hand after the face-off. And Angela Hill kind of waved her off and then looked back at the cameras. As soon as they got away from each other, first off, I mean, Michelle Waterson was notably confused by this, which I was a little bit too. I wasn't expecting that. As far as I'm aware, these two don't have any beef. And Hill just looked tired. They started to walk away, and Hill immediately, her eyes hit the floor, and she just kind of slunk away afterwards. This is the kind of body language that I look for. This is the kind of body language that leads me to believe that there's maybe something a little bit going on here. I already have a bet on Michelle Waterson. If I didn't, this would have put me on Michelle Waterson. I think Hill had a bad weight cut. I checked out her Instagram, and they posted a couple of pictures. They took a video of her smiling with a beer in her hand saying, easiest weight cut ever. If you remember, I got my ass bit by Ryan Bader a couple of weeks ago, and it was the same story. He was posting up on social media about, oh, weight came off perfectly. I'm locked in. I'm ready to go. And then as soon as you saw him on the scales, you knew that was a lie. That's what I'm seeing here with Angela Hill. Everything that she is exuding right now is, oh, it's all good. It's fine. But her body language, as soon as she feels like no one's watching her, is telling me a different story. I think Angela Hill had trouble in this weight cut. If you look, there is one spot where she's in one of those little mini sauna things, and she's just kind of flopped over the side of it, waiting for it to be over. I don't like what I see here. Again, if I wasn't already betting Michelle Waterson, I would bet Michelle Waterson. That line looks to be crashing. I got it a little bit earlier. I think I got plus 110 on it. There are some plus 105s and some plus 100s out there. If you want to go with me on Waterson, now's your shot, because I think that line is about to flip. And if you like Angela Hill and you're going to ride and die with Angela Hill, best of luck to you, but I would caution you after seeing what I saw at the weigh-ins, maybe go a little bit smaller on that bet. Good luck on all your action, everybody. We've got Bellator tonight. We've got Bellator and UFC tomorrow. Football's back. There's hockey. There's basketball. There's baseball. It's a degenerate's delight right now, and I know you all don't bet just on MMA, so good luck on everything else that you are hitting. Make sure you like this video. Share it out there for everybody to see. Please subscribe here at Odds HQ. Give me a follow over at Die Hard MMA Pod on Twitter, and let's roll.